Hi everyone. Today's video is going to talk about parallel lines and transversals. So we're going to look at our foldable today that you're going to be putting together. If you notice, we're only really focusing on four specific areas of our transversals for vocabulary. There are three others that I will share with you. You can definitely put in your notes if you want. You'll see them when we do the Dance Dance transversal game, but you're not going to be responsible for knowing these on any test that you have this year. So let's go ahead and get started. So first of all, if you open up your foldable, you will see that we have our transformation. Let's continue. Just had a slight phone call, so I had to answer the phone. All right, so here we have our transversal, so make sure you label where the transversal is located, and we have our parallel lines. So L and M are our parallel lines cut by that transversal. All the angles that are formed by the parallel lines of transversal are numbered below. And then to point out, anytime you see the word exterior, they're talking about the outside angles that are outside the parallel lines. Interior means they're inside the parallel lines. Just a little bit of the vocabulary that you should be aware of as we go. All right, so I'm going to skip the ones that aren't required as of right now, and then at the end, I'll put them up for you to on display so you can decide what you want to do if you want to fill them all in. So same side interior, same side exterior, we're going to skip for right now, but we have alternate interior angles. So this one we are hitting on pretty hard, and if you can recall in class, I said the kind of neat thing about alternate and interior angles, alternate means they're going to be on different sides of the parallel line. One's going to be on one parallel, one's going to be found on the other parallel line. Interior means they're on the inside, so you can see with my dots that they're actually on the inside of the lines, and that Z shape kind of shows you where those angles are located. So the two purple dots would be considered alternate interior, and the two yellow dots would be considered alternate interior angles. And this one would just be that backward Z you can kind of see forming here. And we kind of looked at that when we were doing our triangle activity, moving one to the other location. So alternate interior angles are congruent, which means they have the same angle measure. In our example down below, angle 3 and angle 6, and angle 4 and angle 5 would be examples of our alternate interior angles. So let's take a look at that down below. So it was 3 and 6, and you can kind of see they're inside the Z. So 3 and 6, and then if we made the Z the other way, you would see 4 and 5. And those would be your alternate interior, alternate because they're on opposite sides of the transversal, angles. So hopefully that helps with a little bit of memorizing of that term. All right, the next one we're going to look at, that's it for the top. So the top, we're really not going to look at anything else. What I'm going to do right now, though, is I'm going to flip these over one at a time. So if you want to write it down, feel free, because you will have it in high school. So it wouldn't hurt to take a look at this and start learning them. And then if you want to play that Dance Dance transversal game, these will pop up at that time also. So same side interior. So they're on the inside of the transversal line, and they're on the same side. So here's an example of what that looks like. Same side interior angles are interior angles on the same side of the transversal. So here's the transversal. They'd be on the same side of each other. These are supplementary angles. So if you were to add them up, they would add up to 180 degrees. Feel free to add that in if you want to remind yourself. 180 degrees. And the examples on the transversal down below would be angle 3 and 5 and 4 and 6. And they kind of be looking like that. So if we look at the inside, 3 and 5, 4 and 6. All right, the other one, same side exterior angles. So they're on the same side, but now they're exterior. So your exterior are the ones on the top and the bottom of the parallel. So here's where they kind of look like in the smaller diagram. Same sides of the transversal, but the exterior, not the interior part. So there would be the examples, and angle 1 and 7 and 2 and 8. So down here, 1 and 7 and 2 and 8. Feel free to pause the video at any time if I'm going too fast to write these down. The pause button is right at your fingertips. All right, and the last one up here is the alternate exterior angles. So alternate opposite sides of the transversal exterior. So this is kind of what it would look like in the small version of the picture. Alternate opposite sides of the transversal exterior on the outsides. These would be considered congruent, which means they'd be the same angle measure, angle 1 and 8 and 2 and 7. So here you go, 1 and 8 and 2 and 7. You can see how they're the opposite side of that transversal line and they're on the exterior parts. All right, the bottom section. Back to what we need to know. Corresponding angles. Corresponding angles have corresponding or the same position relative to the transversal. So corresponding angles would all be the same. Here's a smaller picture of what that would look like. So on this parallel line with this transversal, a corresponding angle would be this top left. On the bottom, it'd also be on the top left. The top right, the top right, the bottom left, the bottom, or the top left, the bottom left, the top right, the bottom right. So there are all the angles that correspond to the larger one. So here's our larger one again. So 1 and 5, 3 and 7, 2 and 6, 4 and 8. Corresponding angles. Same position on the same parallel line as you slide it down. So if you translated this whole line would just shift all the way down and you would actually see the 1, 2, 3, 4 right on top. All right, the next one you need to know, vertical angles. So vertical angles are the ones that we say are the opposite of each other. I would even throw that word in there. Vertical angles are opposites, because that's what we used in class. That verticals, because they kind of make those kind of like that reverse V we were kind of looking at in class. Kind of hard to see that. Easier to see in the diagram. You can kind of see here the opposite angles are vertical. So the two pink, the purple, the orange, and the green, you can kind of see they're kind of reflections of the V from one side to the other. These are considered congruent, which means they'd be the same angle measure. So up above in the diagram would be 1 and 4, 2 and 3, 5 and 8, and 6 and 8, or 6 and 7. Say it right. It's late in the afternoon. So let's take a look here again. 1 and 4, opposites. 2 and 3, 5 and 8, and 6 and 7, vertical angles. All right, the next one, they say linear pair. We're going to actually call this more the adjacent angles. The linear pair, we're not too concerned with you knowing that term, but adjacent is what we're going to focus on. So adjacent angles are just basically angles that have a common side. So you can kind of see in my diagram in purple there, probably not the easiest color to see, but these two angles share that side, and these two angles share that side. So those would be considered adjacent. And what we've been talking about with our adjacent angles, especially with parallel lines cut with transversals, is that they will be supplementary. And so you can tell there are a lot of angles as you move around that would be connected to one another. So as you move around here, you can see there's a lot of adjacent angles. 1 and 3, 1 and 2, 2 and 4, 3 and 4, 5, 6, 6, 8, 8, 7, 7, 5. So as you looked up here, kind of going around the big one, so you can see 1 and 3 share this side, 1 and 2 share the transversal, 2 and 4 share line L, and 4 and 3 share the transversal. And I can kind of do the same thing along the bottom to see all the lines that they share. And then the last one, not really super important right now for this year, but we call this the no relationship. The only relationship they technically have is that they're supplementary, but other than that, there's no real other terminology for these points. And you can kind of see how they're a little bit on the random side. We have an interior angle and an alternate exterior angle kind of together, an interior and an alternate exterior. So they're kind of random-ish. There's kind of like what's left: angle 1 and 6, 2 and 5, 3 and 8, 4 and 7. Supplementary, which means they'd add up to 180. But other than that, again, not one you really have to be you need to know this year. You probably don't even need it for Dance Revolution, but always good to know, you know, that not everything's going to have that relationship. But the only real relationship you probably could see with a supplementary is just kind of that they're not going to be congruent and they're going to be together. So whatever. So anyways, so that is our summary of our parallel lines cut by transversals. I hoped that helped a little bit. So again, these are the ones that you want to focus on: alternate interior, corresponding, vertical, and adjacent. You will see these three also in the Dance Transversal game. Feel free to take some time to go back through them and fill this whole thing out if you want to. But again, the focus for your test is just going to be basically these, especially these parts right in here are really important. All right, so that should be it for our notes on transversals. Have a good night.